Anytime a bird poops on one of my windows, I eat a whole plate of scrambled eggs on my patio just to show them what I'm capable of. And the Savage of the Year award goes to YugiNoNo. Congrats to Alex Lakowski for winning this Stay Salty playmat. All mat giveaways, of course, are sponsored by MetaMats.com, made by us, designed by you. So Alex, be sure to message me on Facebook with your address so I can get you your mat. And for all the rest of you wanting to win a free cloth playmat, I got you. I'm going to be giving away another mat tomorrow. But until then, let's get into this discussion because I've been thinking a lot about Cosmos lately. Not only did Cosmos top the last Tulsa regional, and they did so in spectacular fashion, but they made me realize just how good Cosmos really are. I mean, not only are they every Star Wars nerd's wet dream.
Where's the remote at? Oh, it's all the way over there. Gosh, what? I hate when this happens. Cosmo deck, give me the power. Give me the power to get the remote! Haha! I got it! It actually worked! Cosmos gave me the power!
Good! Now get good at Yu-Gi-Oh! But Cosmos have a lot of aspects about them that have really kept them alive and relevant in our metagame. So in this video, I'm going to be going over those aspects that make Cosmos really good and maybe even convince you to play them. Or at least to give them a shot because they are actually an incredible archetype. It has probably taken so long for me to realize that Cosmos are still good, not just because, you know, they recently topped in Tulsa, but really because when more players were playing Cosmo, I was playing Monarchs, and Monarchs just completely shit on Cosmo. I wanted to play against Cosmo decks. And that is because Monarchs were at full power with 3 Monarch Stormforths, so Monarch players did not care that your stuff could not be targeted. But now Stormforth is at 1, and Monarchs have really fallen out of relevancy, more or less. I mean, there's still Monarch players out there, but Monarchs aren't nearly as good or as consistent as they used to be. I mean, they've always been breaky, but now they are way more breaky because a lot of their cards are on the ban list. Don't get me wrong though, Cosmos have also taken their licks on the ban list with Dark Destroyer being at 1 and Emergency Teleport being at 1, but the hits to Cosmos weren't nearly as severe as the hits to Monarchs. But with Monarchs and their non-targeting abilities out of the way, Cosmos are free to, you know, just get out a big monster and not have to worry about things. Which really is my first point as to why Cosmos are so good, is because they cannot be targeted. The big boss monsters cannot be targeted. That is incredible. When Cosmos came out, they definitely changed the meta because cards like Compulse and stuff were still considered more or less to be staple in some decks, and Burning Abyss players played a lot of trap cards that targeted, so all of these really powerful or relatively powerful trap cards that targeted were just made obsolete immediately. And Castell, which has been a staple rank 4 basically since it came out, it also was made obsolete, which is crazy. I mean, obviously you still play Castell to get rid of other problems, and of course to out that Cosmo Town because if Cosmo Town's destroyed, it gets a search. But the point is, guys, we had to rely on other cards and strategies to out the big Cosmo ships because the stuff that we had been using just wasn't working anymore. Like, we had to play stupid crap like Diamond Crab King. This was before we had Utopia the Lightning, by the way, and we used it to out the Cosmo Dark Destroyer. And then there was the Meteor Burst combo, or whatever you want to call it, and Magicians that would out Dark Destroyer, and then of course we had Ignister. Ignister was fantastic. There's a reason why that card went to 1, is because it was way OP. I mean, Synchro Summoning in Pendulums is super powerful already, but Ignister summons from deck and is a non-targeting spin. But once again, just like Monarchs, Ignister got hit. I mean, Pendulums got hit. Pendulums got a big nerf on top of everything else with the new rules. So this gives Cosmos like just so much more ballroom, to be honest. And on top of having all this extra room and not being able to be targeted, I mean, you have an awesome field spell, debatably one of the best field spells of all time, which is Cosmo Town, which of course is easily searched off of Terraforming. And you get to unbrick your hands. You get to reveal Cosmo cards from your hand, shuffle them back, and draw cards. It is an awesome unbricking card. And if it gets popped, you get a search. I mean, what more can you ask for? And you can purposely pop it with your Slip Rider and get a search. And Cosmo Town's effects are not hard once per turns. Cosmo Town is a fantastic card. And the next thing that makes Cosmos so great is how adaptable it is, not just in different formats, but in different decks. Like originally when Cosmos first came out, people were splashing them into Shaddolls and stuff before we got that big ban list that nerfed everything. We had Fire King Cosmo, which was a great combo deck, and then of course we had like Deck Devastation Cosmos, which leads me to my next point as to why Cosmos could be so good is because they could play the virus cards. They could play Deck Devastation Virus, which they have in the past. They could play Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which is at 1, but is still really powerful. And most recently, they've been playing Full Force Virus, which is an awesome counter to Zoo, even though Zoo has been hit now. You have to still acknowledge, though, how powerful Full Force Virus was against Zodiac. Wait a minute, though, I just had a thought. If Cosmos are a deck that won't die, and they could play all the virus cards, does that make them the STD of Yu-Gi-Oh? Am I promoting an STD right now? But the reason why Cosmos can play the virus cards is because their monsters are so big. I'm mainly referring to Dark Destroyer. Even though it's at 1, the deck has really consistent ways to get it out. Let's be real, not only with Cosmo Town, like I was explaining a minute ago, being able to shuffle back cards and be able to potentially unbrick yourself, but of course the deck has Tin Can built into it, and you can also play a card like Reasoning that helps you get to it. So getting out Dark Destroyer is really not a problem for the deck. It just needed to be put at 1 because when it was at 3, it was just a little bit too much. It was a little bit too OP. But because the monsters are so big, it basically equates to like the Blue Eye strategy. It's like get out a big monster, and on top of that, a big monster that can't be targeted, and let your opponent try to get rid of the thing. Because if they don't get rid of the thing, you're just going to beat them to death with it. Which is honestly not a terrible strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Boss monster decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have historically done very, very well. ABC's probably the most recent example of that, back when they were the best deck. And not only are the monsters big, but they float. It's insane. So let's just say you beat over a 3,000 attack Dark Destroyer, and you didn't do it with Utopia the Lightning. You're immediately gonna have to deal with a 2,800 beater right after that. That is nuts. Not only is Forerunner a 2,800 beater, but now Honest is at 3, so the deck has 3 Honest if you wanted to play it too. Like, what? And since the Cosmos ships float, they can play all the destruction cards with ease, like Dark Hole and Kaiju Slumber. They can play both of those cards because their monsters float. They don't care. They can wipe your board, give you a Kaiju, give themselves a bigger Kaiju, and then float their Dark Destroyer into a Forerunner and just beat the crap out of you. And since their ships trigger in the graveyard, they can play anti-meta cards like Skill Drain. They don't care. Yeah, that's another thing. They can play anti-meta cards, guys. And they have Cosmojo, which is an amazing trap. Like, am I just now getting woke about Cosmos? I think I'm getting woke about Cosmos. Like, seriously, the more I talk about this, the more I'm like, dang, like, why aren't more people playing this? I mean, you have this wide variety of cards that you can play in the deck, and it can OTK. I mean, it does all these different things. It's a fantastic deck. And what's possibly the best aspect about the deck is that it's budget. It is super budget. Everything got reprinted. I mean, maybe the virus cards will cost you a little bit in, like, different odds and ends, but for the most part, like, Cosmos themselves have all been reprinted in gold and are just dirt cheap. And since they are that cheap, they might actually be the best budget deck of the format when you think about it. I mean, going back to my earlier points in the video, you have all these virus cards you can play, you have these big ships that can't be targeted, it can OTK, I mean, just everything. This might actually be the best budget deck that you can play right now. Plus, you can play all of the destruction cards that we have available to us with absolute ease. And another thing that makes them budget is they don't technically need an extra deck. Like, you don't have to play an extra deck in Cosmos. I mean, it's recommended because there's times you can overlay like 2 Slip Riders, for example, and then slap a Nova on, and then slap an Infinity on. You know, that's just a random example, but it's a good example. That's like a good combo. So it is recommended that you play an extra deck, of course, just like for any deck, unless you're playing like Monarchs, of course, because you never know what's going to happen in a duel, and you need as many options as you can, so why not play an extra deck? But at the same time, though, Cosmos don't technically need it. If you wanted to go full-blown budget with the deck, you could just ignore an extra deck, because you will barely go into it anyways. The main deck itself is actually very self-reliant, and that's probably the main thing that even gave them the slightest edge against full-power Monarchs back in the day. Because Monarchs, their whole shtick was to lock you out of your extra deck and screw you over, and if you don't need your extra deck, then that gives you kind of an edge against them. And what balanced that out, like I was explaining earlier, is Monarchs having all these non-targeting abilities and having 3 Stormforth. Man, that was a really fun format. I missed that format. But yeah, guys, that is going to end my rant about Cosmos. It just took me so long to come back around to them. I mean, I always acknowledged that Cosmos were a good deck, but I didn't think that they were that good. I think it's mainly because I used to smack around Cosmo players like they were redheaded stepchildren back in the day. Real quick, though, I want to give a huge shout out to our last mat winner, Michael, who won that beautiful Way of the Warrior playmat that I really wish I would have kept. But if you guys want to support the channel and get a sweet mat in the process, then be sure to go to metamats.com and purchase one of the 3 mats from my mat line. The links to those are down in the description. Or at least if you are mat shopping and pick out a different mat, be sure to tell them that YugiNoNo sent you. But that is going to do it for this video, guys. Go ahead and let me know what decks you are playing down in the comment section. And as always, be sure to dick slap that like button and subscribe.